Hi, welcome to Beauty Strategy. This past weekend I had a chance to doll up Esther, who was attending her best friend's wedding. Stick around to watch this makeover. For the makeup to last longer, I work in thin layers and build up the coverage and the colors. Then I make sure to set it very well. We want the makeup to last long, photograph well, look great in person, and look natural too. I like an angled brush because it allows me to do some precision, and I also can contour and highlight with it. I'm now going in with my second layer of foundation to build up coverage. This typically is going to be on the cheeks and around the nose, sometimes around the eyes and the corners of the mouth. Make sure to go all the way up to the hairline, down the neck, and the jaw too. I'm moving on to highlight. I'm using that same brush and using a cream foundation to highlight the high points of the face. This includes the cheekbones, the center of the forehead, the middle of the nose, cupid's bow, and chin. This is going to create dimension, coverage, and also look very natural. Using the brush or my hands, I'm blending out the highlight, staying pretty close to where I marked it. Then I'm going to take a damp sponge and continue to blend that so it melts into the foundation. Next to my favorite part, contouring. I'm contouring the sides of Esther's face so I can make it appear more narrow and oval. I spend a lot of time doing contour and make sure that it looks very natural. I'm using Senna Cosmetics. This is a matte finish cream to powder product that has no shimmer in it. Blend, baby, blend. Next, I'm moving on to the cheeks. I like to use a sponge wedge because it really allows me to carve out that shape and also blend it out pretty accurately. I'm also putting a little bit in the temples just to create a little added dimension. Then I'm going to pat the product in, and then I'm going to start blending downward. I don't want to blend it upward because that's where the high point of the cheek is and where the highlight will go. So it doesn't make sense to do that. I'm also making sure not to drag the contour color too far down as it can make the cheeks look sunken in. Then I move on to the nose. Sometimes I start at the bottom of the nose or the nose bridge. This time I started at the nose bridge because I wanted to make sure that I connected it with the eyebrow, the brow bone, and make sure that it blends in with the highlight in the center. Speaking of natural, I'm doing the cheeks in a cream blush. This is going to help it look natural and wear better. And it's going to blend in with the contour, highlight, and foundation really nicely. I'm using a stippling brush to do this. I'm focusing on the contour shape rather than the apples of the cheeks, but I am going to blend it a little bit into the apple so it kind of blends together. Next, I'm going to take a small pointed brush and I'm going to apply loose powder in the highlighted areas. I'm choosing to use a lighter translucent color to further emphasize the highlights that I place. This is going to be in the forehead, down the nose, and the high points of the cheekbones. I'm just patting that color in and being very light. Then using a loose powder that's closer to her skin tone, which is going to be a mix of ivory and olive, I'm using a pointed powder brush and putting that all over her face. Sometimes powder can get into the hairline, so I immediately take a brush, put alcohol, hairspray, water, whatever I have, and apply that to smooth out the hairline and cancel out any powder. Now that I've used a setting powder, I'm going to use a finishing powder. This one is a little bit luminous, so I'm using it to highlight very subtly. I'm doing it on the high parts of the cheekbones, above the brow bone. Since the face is done, I can move on to the eyes. Before I do the eyes, I'm actually going to do the brows because that is important to frame the entire face. I'm using a pencil to carve out the arch, and then I'm going to use a lighter pencil and kind of draw small strokes and fill in any sparse areas and create the illusion of hair and dimension. I started with a darker color in the tails and the arch and a lighter color in the front and middle portions. She has great brows to start, so I'm really maintaining the integrity of it. I am brushing a brow gel all over so I can lift it upwards and outwards and kind of keep the brow hairs in place. Now I can still see that there's some filling in to do, so I'm going to emphasize the front with a brow pencil, doing upward strokes to mimic the hair. I know I'm going to do a soft natural smoky eye, so I'm starting with a mid-tone brown primer. This is a MAC paint pot. I'm using a concealer brush, a synthetic brush, to apply that on the lower part of her lids. I'm taking a flesh tone color and putting that on the rest of her lids and underneath her brow bone to set all the creamy product. The main color is going to be a medium brown. I'm putting that all over the bottom portion of our lid above the crease line. And I'm going maybe about halfway because I don't want it to be too big. Then I'm going to blend it out with a contour brush. To add more dimension and interest, I'm going to take a bronzy gold shimmery shadow, taking my finger, and I'm going to pat that on the lid on both sides right above the dark color and use it as a transition color. Then I'm going in with a brush to blend it out. I pop a little bit of lighter champagne color in the inner corners of her eyes. To add more dimension, I'm using a kohl pencil and tight lining on her lash line. And I'm also going to blend this out later on with a shadow to set it. This is going to create a little bit more depth on her lashes and open up her eyes and frame her eyes more. Taking a small dense brush with matte black powder on it, I'm overlaying that on the eyeliner, putting it on first, packing it on, and then I'm blending it and smudging it upward. I take the eyeshadow brush to blend those two colors together as well. Taking some cream on a Q-tip, I am cleaning up the fallout underneath. I didn't know how smoky I was going to go, so I skipped the under eye concealer, but I'm going to go in after the face is clean. The eyes are mostly done. I'm using a light peachy color. It ends up being a little bit too light, but I warm it up later. I'm mainly focusing on the dark areas and the corner of her eyes where she does have that dark shadow. Asians tend to have a dark shadow on the outer edge and it can drag the eye down and make it look droopy. Then I'm using a fluffy brush to blend it out and going back in with a warmer, more orange concealer to warm it up and make sure it's not ashy. This is going to look more natural and blend in with the rest of her face. I set the concealer immediately using my sponge wedge and putting a generous amount of product to bake the eyes. This is going to set the creamy product as well as emphasize the highlights that I did. Now I can move on to powder underneath her eye. I'm using that same brush that I used earlier and creating kind of a halo effect with the medium dark brown. Eyes are done. I take that same powder brush and then I'm going to dust away any excess. Baking is done. Whenever I'm doing a full makeover on others, I always do a lip liner. This allows me to correct the shape and build some color for longer lasting coverage. I'm using kind of a pink nudish color that matches Esther's lips closely. I'm making sure that I make the bottom lip as full as the top. After swatching some lip stain colors, I choose the middle one, which is a mid-tone nudish color, very close to the lip liner and her natural lip color. I'm applying that all over using a lip brush. I'm gonna let that dry after I do the lashes, and then I'm gonna go back and seal it with the clear gloss that it comes with. The reason why I like the Jane Iredale lip stains is because they're moisturizing and not too opaque. For the false lash, I'm using the Ardell Wispies. These flare out at the ends that really help open up the eye. While the false lashes are drying, I usually apply eyeliner. To mix up this look, I'm actually applying a colored plum shimmery eyeliner pretty thickly with a synthetic angled brush. Then I go back with a black liner and do a sharp line close to the lash line. Lip stain is dried. I'm going to moisturize the lips using the clear gloss that it comes with. Same brush. After the full face is done, I take a step back and I look to see if there's anything that needs to be adjusted. This can be bumping up the cheeks, adding a little bit more eye color, maybe taking away something. In this case, I decided to further define Esther's brows to make them more sharp, defined, and full. I'm using a pencil, powder on the arch, and then I'm also going to go in and fill in the front with a darker powder. To clean up the lip, I'm going to use a concealer pencil and put that into the outer corners of the lip and then blend it out with a brush. To marry the false lashes with the natural ones, I take a black mascara on a mascara fan and I lightly paint the natural lashes and lift them up. Now the final look is done. I've already done Esther's hair and her makeup looks great, and now she's ready to do her speech at her best friend's wedding.